Welcome to Doc NYC and this special Q&A for I Am Greta. I'm Tom Powers, the festival's artistic director. This film is playing as part of Doc NYC's shortlist section, where we choose 15 films that we think will be top awards contenders this year. I'm pleased to have the film's director, Nathan Grossman, joining us from Stockholm, Sweden. Nathan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tom.
So your film starts in August 2018, before most people had heard of Greta Thunberg. How did you get started on this story?
Yeah, like many documentary projects, it actually started with a tip. A friend of mine knew Greta's family a little bit and told me that she was going to do some small manifestation outside the Swedish parliament for the election. And I had like a discussion with my boss, and we said, like, is this worth doing like a recce and going down and seeing if she's of any interest? So I grabbed a camera and a friend of mine who's a sound technician, and we went to this cold and narrow street by the parliament. And there she was. So it was a little bit hard finding her because she was, so tiny. And then we saw her sitting. And I went up and said, don't get your hopes up, but I want to film a little bit of this activism, and just do your thing, and we'll see if this heads in any direction. But maybe I will just be here for 1 or 2 days if this isn't really working on camera. And from there, I kind of started rolling.
And where did it go from there? When did you kind of get the feeling that this is a movie?
At the office, they always call me the pessimistic person, in the sense that I have a tendency kind of not to really kind of believe in the story. I kind of tend to be pessimistic, and I remember
That's saying a lot for Sweden, right?
Yeah, maybe it's something with us, the Scandinavians, the gloomy way we see the world, and the more gloomy than me, I clicked the camera down to low resolution mode, actually, because I wanted to save space on the hard drives, because that was kind of what I felt this was heading for. It took me all the way until kind of, I think, somewhere in the late winter of 2018, 2019, when the strikes kind of moved from the Scandinavians all the way to Australia and Belgium, and tens of thousands of people were suddenly kind of out in the streets having signs, saying kind of "Go Greta," and we're Fridays for Future. And that was when I kind of understood, Jesus, her kind of way of speaking about this issue is really something unique. And then I clicked the camera up to 4K.
So Greta's mother is a well-known opera singer. She wrote this book, which I recommend to people who want to know more after watching this film. And if you read the book, it tells a whole different story of their family, which your film is very kind of complementary to. But I wonder how you kind of found your focus in this film.
No, but I think this is a film which is about kind of Greta in a sense, and not about her family. And it's also a film about kind of how it is living with Asperger's in a sense, which I think films can do much more than books and articles, because you can immerse yourself into someone's head almost. And I think from early on, I was interested. I saw, Greta doing short interviews, like 5-minute and 10-minute stuff, and you get a sense of her in one dimension. But I wanted to see if a film could kind of get almost inside her head. So I started doing interviews with her, and she did kind of readings from her diary, which is kind of the narration of the film, to see if there was a way for the audience to experience this extremely kind of raveling year from inside of her, instead of someone else kind of telling the story about her.
I'm curious what it was like to show the film to Greta and her family, and what your interactions with them were, as time went by.
Yeah, but of course, kind of having the idea of making a film in the way that I expressed it, that you want to do a portrait from within someone, it's of course very hard, because then you have to kind of, as a director, try to kind of interpret that person. So of course I was I was a bit nervous when she was going to watch it, because I had told her and the family that I need to have space to kind of do my point of view and do the film as I want. And if there's anything you want to comment, you do that in the last kind of phase. So I was a bit, yeah, it was a bit scary in that sense, having her watching it. But it was also very rewarding, because what she said after the cinema kind of, the end titles roll, was that she actually recognized herself in a way that she hadn't done when she kind of saw herself in the news. And that the very kind of one-dimensional, angry person that maybe the media has created of her was not the same thing that she saw in the film, and that the person on screen was much more in contact with the person that she saw herself as. Which was always what I hoped, but I was, of course, worried before that I had interpreted her correctly.
Well, another sensitivity to this film is that you're dealing with a teenager, 15, 16 years old during the time of making it. So I got to think that there's a different sensitivity to dealing with someone that age than if you were filming an adult. Can you talk about that sensitivity?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to point out as a documentary filmmaker that I think that we need to, even with adults, and even I think with people in powerful positions, also have a lot of kind of empathy and so on. But in this case, I think what was interesting for me was also that Greta was going to tell kind of her story, that not experts and other people would kind of put labels onto her and define her, but that she would have the space to kind of define herself, which I think she has done very well in the movie, with the kind of narration that came out of those interviews and out of those diary readings.
I want to ask you about that boat trip, which it feels like an adventure, feels like an endurance test. Did you personally have any preparation in your life for taking a trip like that?
It's a good question, Tom. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have. No, I actually didn't. In a sense, I remember when Greta told me about this idea, and it was maybe I shot the entire film myself because I wanted to kind of be able to get into the rooms where she was having meetings and so on. But I remember at this specific point, I went to the office and asked, "Is there anyone else? Want to go over the Atlantic? Like, this is my limit. This I won't shoot this." But after discussing it a little bit more with the captain and with Greta, I understood that, of course, it would be bumpy, but maybe it wasn't dangerous in a sense, and that it would maybe put more mental kind of heaviness than it would be like a physical endeavor. So then I decided that, okay, but I want to go because I think that the story kind of and the viewers will want to know kind of how this journey kind of felt physically. So I went on the trip.
And how did you choose, where to end the film? I mean, Greta's story keeps on going. So how did you make that decision?
Yeah, that's always hard. And when this story, I think I spoke to a reporter that called it like a prequel of a superhero movie. That this is like the, and I think it was a good formulation. Of course, when we started shooting it, it wasn't that, but now it's like this developing story that will go on for I don't know how long. No one knows, but we know that when we now have the prequel and we have kind of the story of how all this kind of came about. And I think also with the sailing over to the Atlantic Ocean and this very special speech in the United Nations, I felt that prequel was kind of done, in the sense that now Greta was kind of seen. Now she was at that moment where the entire world saw her. That speech was, and is still today one of the most famous kind of activism speeches of at least a few decades. And I felt that at this moment we've understood who Greta is and how she kind of came to this point, and from here a new story can kind of emerge. But this story is done.
You and I are speaking on November 5th. As we speak, the U.S. election is still undetermined. Obviously, a lot rides on that election, including issues of climate change. And I wonder, having immersed yourself in this world around the climate crisis and activism for the last couple of years, what you think the urgency of this moment is for action.
No, but I think whatever happens in the coming week with the American presidential election, we are still in a time where we need to address climate change very quickly. And the US pulled out of the Paris Agreement yesterday, the 4th of November. And of course that can change, but I think it shows a lot about how this question is kind of slipping out of our hands. And what's so alarming with climate change is that the pollutants keep on kind of getting out of chimneys everywhere in the world as we speak. And with every kind of kilo of carbon dioxide that's getting out, it's getting harder for us to change this. And I think what's shown in the film is young people, because it's the young people that will live in that future. And I think whoever becomes president and whatever happens in the world, these young people will grow up and they will have to walk on this planet. And I think that's what's so special with climate change, in the sense that it's like an issue that almost kind of floats atop of everything else. And I think we need to make sure to kind of finally address how we should tackle that issue and that future, because otherwise we will have problems kind of coming back again and again and again.
Now that you're not filming with Greta and her family on a constant basis, what kind of contact do you have with the family? And can you give us some perspective on what Greta is doing these days, where her focus is?
No, but of course we have some contact, not in the same way as we had when we were filming, but we chat, on the phone and so when things happen. And she started high school a few months ago here in Sweden. So she took the sabbatical year and is now back in school, and is of course monitoring how kind of the world looks like and what she's going to do with her activism, but with the focus, of course, of getting through high school and doing those 3 mandatory years that we have here in Sweden.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, having gone through this project, what's next for you?
Yeah, now it's been lots of interviews and it's been fantastic. It's been amazing seeing how the world reacts to the film and being at so many film festivals and reading so many comments and getting fantastic emails from people all over the world. So I spent some time to fix all that, but I have a few other projects that I've been pitched to, and now I will have a small vacation and then I will decide what project to jump on.
All right. Well, Nathan, we thank you for this gift of a film. We thank you for taking time to be here with us today.
Thank you very much, Tom.